But yes, so you could give your take on either way. So she's never been married, never had kids.
Never been married, never had kids. At late 30s or 40s, I would wonder what's wrong.
What if she said that she had been focusing on her career? I have a client.
That's what's wrong.
I had sorry the way you said it. I had a woman who she was focusing on her career, and now she was finally in a position where she was ready to date. And then her mother fell ill, and she became her caretaker, and her time was tied up so much going back and forth to take care of the mom. But I think it's so important to not have an either or mindset when it comes to women, especially in our youth. I think it's important to be able to do both, unless the guy is, I don't know, I can't really see a guy saying, no, don't finish school, or no, don't get your degree, or whatever he's like, you're working towards. I think that would be a red flag. But Cavani says, yikes, there's no hope for me.
Yeah, like, what are y'all going to tell your daughters to do?
Well, now, I think
that's an easy question.
I want to answer the first one real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm more so like, and I don't know. I think I might be the minority on this one out of all the guys. But like, if I see a woman that's single, I won't necessarily at that age. I won't necessarily assume that she's the problem. Of course, I don't know her for one, but I feel like it's a lot more good women than men out here, which is why I think that a lot of men might consider themselves the prize. Because if I'm a good man, I know you're not gonna find somebody else. A lot of men like me.
It's mathematically improbable.
Yeah. So I think that I assume in most cases that it's a lot of things that a lot of men could have did for her to be single right now. And I could be wrong, right? But I do assume that a lot of us, because I got a lot of friends who they don't really know how to they don't know how to stay faithful, stuff like that. They never really, had interest in it. So I would assume that, something like that may have happened, even though a lot of women can be bad partners. They can be bad partners and they can, they don't reciprocate a lot. But that would be my first thought without having a conversation with her. I think a lot of women are single just because of purely us, but it could be either or. But I wouldn't assume too much. But yeah, I would see a bigger issue with a man that's single at my age, at that age, than a woman.
So my thoughts on that topic. So what you're saying, there's a lot of good men out there. The biggest problem is that what I see is a lot of women, they look for the wrong man because no one taught them probably how to pick a good man. But when there's the good man is usually the guy in their DM, the guy that's like trying to take them out, but they're not interested. Maybe he's not tall enough. Maybe there's, something's wrong with him. He's not making enough money. Something's not attractive to her that she's not picking him. But the good men are there. Mathematically, the way I look at it is 56% of men are single and in the middle class and childless. So they're there. But who are these women choosing to deal with? They want this. What I see is a lot of women are dealing with the same man over and over and over again, which is why we have such a off rate when you look at the birth rate of who's fathering the majority of these children.
So I got to chime in on this. Okay, so when I entered the dating market, I was 22. I just graduated college. That's when I was finally allowed to date. My parents were very strict. And within months, I met the man that I married, and we were engaged within 3 months. So that was my first experience. I was in my 20s, no kids, virgin, the whole nine. Now, fast forward, after my divorce, mother of two, I was in my late 30s. And when I started to meet men, I found that there were hardly any that would even pass my test. Now, obviously, once they passed my test, then I had to pass their test. I was not running into a bunch of guys. And I did have men who were in my DMs. I did have whatever. But what I found and what's really scary is, and this is coming from a dating coach, a lot of guys did not have the most basic conversational skills. I remember one example, and a lot of ladies probably will relate to this. This guy swipes right, he matched, because in my area, there were not a lot of black guys, and that's what I'm attracted to. So I was primarily almost completely on an app. Ran across the sky, we both matched, hey, blah, blah, blah. We exchanged numbers, and he would just randomly text, almost like how you text if you were already in a relationship, just very, and I was like, hey, it'd be nice to do a FaceTime, kind of get a feel for who you are, da, da, da. Oh, okay. And then he ends up FaceTiming while driving and very much distracted by driving. Like, he had no point in his day that he could just sit his phone down and have, a face-to-face conversation. And then the conversation was all over the place because he was distracted. And I said that I prefer talking on the phone when getting to know someone versus text, and he kept texting. So finally I just said, you know what, I don't think we're compatible. That was one example. There were so many guys who it was shocking. I'm like, how are you in your 40s and you don't know to just have banter? You don't know how to engage. And so it was scary to me what was out there. And in my head, I kept thinking, I see why you're single. I see why you're single. The guy one of the guys that was cool, I was cool getting to know, he was not where he wanted to be financially. That happened with two people that I talked to that were like, at least, okay, we seem like we're aligned. He was not where he wanted to be financially. So we couldn't date because he wasn't comfortable. So I feel like there's this myth where there are all these great guys chomping at the bit for a relationship, but we're wanting these like unrealistic, crazy criteria. But for me, I didn't think my criteria was that crazy. And it was difficult to find somebody who was willing to actually take the effort to pursue and hold conversations, initiate things like that. So I'm curious to know if other women feel like that, because I think from the other side it sounds great. There are all these great guys that you're overlooking, but I don't know where they were.
Willie's homie. I'm sorry. What was your name?
GMT.
GMT. Okay. I think I misspoke. I didn't necessarily mean good men. I guess I meant qualified men. Right. I do think that now I guess when I think about this, I'm thinking about the men that women want out of those men that they want. How many of those happen to be good men? Because there's probably technically a lot of good men who may fit the description. Financially, he might be an engineer. He might fit the description in many different ways, but not enough of those ways for him to be kind of in high demand when it comes to among women and what they actually want. So I guess I meant qualified men. I don't think there's necessarily a lot of qualified men.
You don't think that that's a problem?
It depends. I think that a woman wanting somebody that's out of her league is a problem. That's too far out of her league. But I think as long as that man is in your league, then definitely, like, I'm a man, right? So if I make a certain amount of money, I qualify for a certain amount of women. And if I'm a woman and I'm certain type of beautiful, I qualify for these men. I don't have to pick from down there. I can pick from up here. So I think the problem is women who are down here trying to pick from up here with the women who are, kind of qualify for those men. I think that's an issue.
So that's that imbalance, right? Exactly what you're saying right now is the 80%, the 80% of women looking at the 20% of the men. That's exactly how you're describing it. Because, if with me, I'm married. I've been married to my wife. I've been out the dating market for 14 years, right? But I have I talk to men every day. And some of them, Yancy, you're right, they can't hold good conversations. Some of them are coming to men like me trying to get some game on how to deal with women that's in their lives. But there's still a lot of guys that could hold those conversations, but they might be a little corny. They might be a little quirky, I should say, not corny, to where women are looking at them like, nah, not you. You don't have enough swag for me. But back in the days when women, were in their 40s and 50s, the likelihood is they would have been married because they would have been married to that quirky dude. And he provided, he protected, he did the best that he could, for the most part. And even now in a 50-50 world, it's still enough to go around. It's just these guys are getting overlooked because of unrealistic expectations. Not all. Yeah. Not in your case, Yancy, I don't know. But I don't believe that you are that type of person. But you know, from what I'm seeing out there and what I hear every day, it's a problem.
And I
I
think a
wish
lot
you.
of
Oh, go ahead.
I was about to say, I agree with that. I think a lot of it is our fault. You know, we need to stop taking the elevator down. You know, because a lot of us do. You know, we go and we get them women who we know, we know they're not on our level, but we still, for real quick, we do that. And I think a lot of us need to stop creating that expectation that they qualify for those type of men. Because I think that's kind of where they get it from, because they've experienced these men in some capacity before. They think that that's now their type when it's not, you know.
I can get with that.
All right,
You're on mute, Keisha.
Oh, there we go.
I
Sorry.
say, GMT, can I ask you a couple of questions? So about the statistics that you have given. So one thing that you said was that 80% of the women look for 20% of the man, or something like that. What did you say exactly? Because I don't want to misquote you.
Pretty much I pushed out the 80-20 rule, but it's not precise, but it's just the 80-20 rule.
Okay, and so like, where do you get that from?
If you look at data, statistics, right? Look at who's the majority of the go on blackdemographics.com, cdc.gov,
Okay.
where they actually have data of our demographics. Right now, I don't know if we're breaking this down to the Black community or if we're just breaking this down to men and women in general. But if I have to look at our community, because that's who I usually speak to and for,
That's fine.
our community, the 56% of the men are single, middle class, and childless. That means the majority of Black men are not the men that women are making children with. And on top of that, not only it's not just Black women are making children with, they're making children with other races as well. So that's where I'm getting my
And GMT,
numbers.
can I help you?
And so what's
I got 3 kids, 3
Right.
baby moms. I said, can I help you? I got 3 kids, 3 baby moms.
Single with no kids.
So what's so I hear a lot of people say the 56% are childless, and then they compare it to the number of women the percentage of women who are childless. But if you go ahead and you break that same data down by age groups, and you look at one of the oldest age groups as far as 40 to 49-year-olds for men and women, like it's like 86% men and 89% of women have at least one child.
It becomes identical the older they get. You're right about that.
Right. So it may be different reasons for that. So, like I've just heard people kind of use that when really it's more similar than it is different, because women have children younger. Like it's easier to identify that we have had a child versus a man who hasn't had a child. And the data is actually kind of similar across different demographics. So usually more women have had children than men. So I'm just saying it's like perhaps it's not as evidenced as.
But also,
There's twice as many Black men without children as there are Black women up to age 30.
No, so that's what I just said. If you go ahead and you look at the stratification of age groups and you compare the age groups are closer as you get older, because maybe
Right,
y'all
because as
just
you
have
get older,
children.
it's harder to have children. That's inherent in the data. The older you get,
Excuse me?
the less likely you are to have children. That's not saying anything.
But
It's
that's
not
still saying that most men have children and most women have children, and the percentages are equal.
No, the percentages. It's about what they're older. That doesn't count. That's not what we're looking
Why
at.
doesn't
That's
it count?
because the older you get, you've lived more life. We're talking about a specific age group of people. So if we're talking about men over the age of 20 years old to 35, it doesn't start to get the same until you're past your childbearing years, your prime childbearing years.
It doesn't.
We can Google
Those
it.
numbers turn into 50s.
Yeah,
Now,
we
as
can
men
Google
turn in
it.
their 50s, they start having.
So the age that it starts to get the same is at 35.
Past your prime childbearing years, which is what I said.
But if women usually date somebody older, like that doesn't mean that women are only having babies with the same people. It just means that maybe they date older.
The fact that there are twice as many Black men without children as are with Black women proves that fact.
It's not twice as many Black
It
women.
is twice as many, literally.
It isn't twice as many, and the age group that they
How much
look
would you
at
like to bet?
is
I'll
15.
make a safe wager. Yancy, I'll sponsor 2 women's courses if I'm wrong.
Whoa.
If you're wrong about exactly what?
What I just said, anything that I've said statistically speaking.
So which was what?
We can rewind it. I said that there are twice as many black men without children as there are black women.
So that's not how you would make that differentiation.
100% is. It proves the 80-20 rule right there.
And so first off, numbers don't prove things like that. But you don't look at 15 to 50-year-olds and then to determine like
Dark clouds, don't do that.
if there are more.
I'm a cook. So like saying you can't say numbers
You know
don't
what?
matter.
I'm gonna let you cook. Go ahead and
You
cook.
can't say that numbers.
This is what I do for a living.
Census data.
So I always find it interesting that people that
know what they're talking about.
No, they don't really have the expertise. Y'all try to use these percentages to prove things, and that's not how it's done.
How can you say that? How can you say we don't have the expertise though?
Yeah, what expertise that we don't?
Because of how you're proving it. But
I'm still trying to figure out how you're proving it.
It's not. It's a.
Well, that's because,
you're talking about how you feel. We're talking about what we've read.
Okay, so let's try this.
I'm not talking about how I feel. I'm talking about statistical methods that are used to prove when 2 populations are different or have differences or similarities. And it's not by looking at a percentage of the entire population that way. Like, that's not how it's done. It's not that simple. So that's how I kind of know.
Well, she's a professional, so she should have the numbers right now. So just give us the numbers.
Yeah, what are the numbers?
You're professional, so you can just give us the numbers. You
so
got
I told you the numbers. You have to break it into groups to prove. So, like, if I say black people do this and black people do that, then you have
to what we're talking about specifically. Like, stick to what we're talking about specifically.
You don't want me to talk?
No, I want you to stick to the subject and don't move the goalpost.
I'm not moving the goalpost. I'm giving an example.
Okay, so let's let her do that, and then if we feel it's off topic, then we'll.
I mean, but you can also look it up on YouTube. So when you look and see if 2 populations are different or the same, you don't just look at the percentages. So one thing that you do is within those populations, you look at cross segmentations. So we're talking about people being like, the assertion was that women talk to the same 20% of men, which you said wasn't an exact number, are that there are twice as many women than there are men with babies, right? With children. No. And so that proves that women are choosing the same man. Is that right or wrong?
Yes, women are talking to the same men because the majority of black men don't have children.
The majority
of black men
black women do.
Right. So it's a couple of things.
Those are the 2 things that we need to disprove, and that'll tell you who's right and who's wrong.
So let's say it's not that disprove, you have to prove that those things are true. So I'm saying you can't just prove it by using a percentage.
Either or, with his general statement, he's either wrong or right.
No, it's not either wrong or right. So numbers don't.
Numbers don't tell the entire story, right? But
they don't prove things like that. Just like percentages don't prove.
Numbers are just tools, right? They're tools that you can use to make your argument. But
so it's evidence for or evidence for against.
Yeah, but just by his statement, he's either wrong by his statement, right? About the fact that because he said a fact, right? It's either wrong or right. So that we can prove either wrong or right. So that's why he bet you. Like we can take the numbers and we can lie with statistics and we can draw any conclusion that we want to because it's just a tool to make your argument.
Okay, so let me clarify what I'm saying. I'm not saying that for the ages of 15 through 50 that there aren't more women that have children than there are men. So I'm not refuting that that's a fact.
Okay.
So for 15 to 50, I believe that's the age group when I looked it up and checked the stats. Only a certain percentage of men have children and a higher percentage of women have children. I'm saying that does not prove or it's not evidence that women are sleeping with the same couple of guys. That's what I'm saying.
So what does it prove?
I'm also saying that looking at percentages, you can't say that two populations are different by simply looking at the populations, the percentages in two populations. Like there are lots of other tests that you could do. One is
So-
cross segmentation. So cross segmentation would mean you look at the men and the women and you break it up into age groups and you compare the age groups. Or you break it up by income levels and you compare the income level slots. Or you break it up by states. Like it's a whole bunch of different ways that you have to do it.
Different
In
variables.
addition to
Keisha,
it being statistically significant and all this other kind of stuff. So that's all I'm saying. Like people oversimplify it.
Yeah.
And
because it's not that difficult to look at. So what I'm looking at right now is exploring the Black fertility rates and family trends on blackdemographics.com. And okay, this is Black men and women between the ages of 15 to 49, right? Who had biological children. 46% Black men to 61% Black women. Now, when you talk about the age group of 40 to 49, right? Because as you broke it down, that age group, of course, women are not as fertile in that age bracket.
No. But it has one children. Okay, so it has one child ever. So it's not saying that you need to get pregnant at 40 to 49. It's saying that you've had a child. So once you look at that age group, all of us have had kids at the same percentage rate.
No, that's not how they're breaking it down, though. What they're talking about is men still have
broke it down.
Well, the data that I'm breaking down now is saying that men are still having children all the way to 49. So that's where you start to now have that leveled out. You know, when you look at the age bracket of women and men, because men are still having children all the way up into their upper 40s.
So what does that mean?
That you have to be able to interpret the data unbiased and be able to disconnect your personal views from it to actually interpret the data for what it's saying.
And what does that say?
That men have children later in life because they're able to. Women don't because they're not able to.
But we're looking at the entire. I thought we're talking
having children at a higher clip because they're older, and men keep doing it. So the fact
but I thought the statement was that we keep choosing the same people.
Because it could not. The likelihood is it could be the same men.
So y'all are only
women
talking
don't
about
even acknowledge, but 20% of men. Like we can say that now. You go outside, you see 10 dudes, you only go acknowledge the 1 or 2 that you find attractive. The other 80 are invisible. That also proves that y'all probably, therefore, only sleeping with 20% of men.